I just continued to stare out the window. What do you think that is?
Hi, Oddings. Welcome to Stories with Sapphire. You're at the Sapphire. Do you believe that ignorance is bliss, or do you think knowledge is always power?
And now, it's story time. One summer, I visited my grandma in Japan for a mini family reunion along with my parents and my older brother. They owned a small 2-level house in the middle of the countryside, surrounded by large rice fields. I was excited to see my favorite cousin, Jen, the most. Even though she was a little older than me, she was never condescending and treated me like an equal. I hadn't seen her in over 5 years. When we arrived at the house, I ran up to my grandma, who greeted me with warm smiles and open arms. A lot of my cousins were there too, already playing kickball in the field. I looked around for Jen, but I didn't see her. I asked my grandma where she was, and she said that she'd moved out 3 years ago, and she unfortunately wasn't going to make it today. I was pretty disappointed. I asked my parents if we could at least visit her before we flew back to the US in a couple days. They looked at each other with this slightly concerned look. What, is there a problem? Oh, just grown-up things, sweetie. I'm not a little kid anymore, you can tell me. It's just that our schedule's pretty tight. We'll look into it later. Go have fun. It was the strangest thing that day. Whenever I mentioned Jen, people wanted to change the topic. I hated when people did that to me. I always know when people aren't being honest. I wanted to take a break from everyone, so I went exploring the house. I came upon Jen's old room on the 2nd floor. It was unlocked, so I decided to poke around inside. It was kind of sad seeing it so bare. The last time I was there, we were dancing and singing to pop songs on her bed. The view from her window caught my eye. I leaned out and saw the adults drinking and laughing down below. I saw my cousins running around in the field. I looked up at the gorgeous summer landscape, an ocean of rice stalks that extended for miles. That's when something caught my eye, far out in the distance. In the middle of the rice fields was what looked like some kind of figure. It was completely white and seemed to be swaying or almost wiggling as if it was being blown by the wind. It was so far away I couldn't really tell what it was, but it was intriguing. Curious about what I was looking at, I pulled out my phone and began to zoom in on it when, "Hey!" I jumped with surprise, dropping my phone on the floor. "What you doing up here?" my brother asked. I just continued to stare out the window, out at the figure in the distance. What do you think that is? It looks really interesting. My brother picked up my phone and aimed it toward the figure and zoomed in. His jaw dropped in awe or shock. I wasn't sure. I pleaded with him to let me see, but he held the phone high above me, out of my vision. His eyes were the widest I'd ever seen them. He was perfectly still, as though in a trance. He finally spoke. "Oh my God, so that's what happened to her. I don't believe it. You couldn't handle this. You don't want to know." That was the last straw. "I can handle it. I want to know." I jumped for the phone, and when I touched my brother's hands, they felt extremely clammy and cold. His face was now pale as he dropped the phone and grabbed his chest. His eyes were bloodshot and tears were streaming out of them like a running sink. His legs buckled from beneath him, and he fell onto the floor. I didn't know what else to do but scream. Moments later, my parents and grandma came running into the room. One look at my brother, and it was as if they knew exactly what happened, but they didn't say a word. My parents simply carried him off into the room next door and shut the door behind them. My grandmother looked out the window and out at the field and shouted for my cousins to quickly come inside. She shut the curtains closed. Please tell me what's going on. I shouldn't tell you. I'm tired of people telling me that. Are you sure you want to know? Once you know the truth, you cannot go back. I nodded. There are despicable evils in this world. From far away, they may look silly and friendly, but upon closer inspection, you start to see their disgusting, horrific details. Details so unimaginable that they drive you to madness. I could hear my brother laughing, screaming, then crying maniacally and running around the room next door. The only way to protect yourself is to not go looking for it. We call it the Kunekune. The Kunekune hates us. It thinks humans should be more flexible. I could hear something crack from inside the room. The Kunekune thinks humans have too much color. The Kunekune wants all of us to become like them. Jen didn't move out 3 years ago, dear. Jen, just like your brother is now, was... No, I don't want to know. I can't handle it, Grandma, please. I don't want to know. Just tell me he's gonna be okay. Just tell me he's gonna be okay. I fell to my knees and sobbed uncontrollably. My grandma put her arms around me. Your brother's going to be okay.